Hi guys, it's Unearthly and welcome back to another Doctor Who video today. So today's video is my review on an Unearthly Child. As you guys know, I am now reviewing the classic episodes after you guys begging me for weeks to do it, so I thought I would. So last night I watched the Unearthly Child. I'm always watching them now the night before I do these reviews so they're fresh in my head. Also, if you've never seen my face on your screens before, please click that big red subscribe button down below. And also click the notifications bell to get notifications every single time I upload. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. So, 23rd of November 1963 is a very important date in so many Whovians' calendars. It's the anniversary of Doctor Who, but also 1963 was the day Doctor Who was born. And the first ever Doctor Who serial was in 1983 on the 23rd of November, called An Unearthly Child. There's four parts to this serial, but I thought because it's the serial I'm reviewing, the entire story I'm reviewing, I'll do the entire thing. So, I'm not going to go too much in detail about the entire thing. I'm just going to give you my review and rate it out of 10. To give you a brief idea of what the serial is about, it starts with the Doctor Who theme tune, which at this point no one had ever heard before. Doctor Who was basically brand new to everybody. No one even knew what it was. Like, barely anybody knew who it was. And I've got my iPad here because it's got notes of what I've written down about it. So yeah, and then there's a little foreshadowing moment here that not many people realise. It's also in the 50th anniversary, if you guys remember, but I'm not talking about that right now. I will be reviewing modern Doctor Who series as well, apart from series 13, which I'll review when the BBC put a release date trailer out. So, as the titles and the first scene you get is a picture of basically a garage door in other ways, or a junkyard door, depending on how you want to look at it, with M. Foreman on it, which I'm guessing is the inspiration behind Susan Foreman's last name, you know, because she saw it on a garage or whatever. So yeah, and then obviously the camera goes really slowly and you see obviously the police box, which is known as the TARDIS, which isn't revealed until later on. So, cut to the chase a few scenes later, you see Coal Hill School, which does actually make a reappearance in the modern era, as I've seemed to notice. Anyway, you see the school, obviously this serial had a lot to introduce. It had to introduce the new sci-fi show, it had to introduce the Doctor and 3 companions all at once, it had to introduce Susan, Barbara White and Ian Chesterton. It had a lot going for it, this particular story. This first Doctor Who story in 1963 had a lot it had to do. It had to introduce it had to introduce the Doctor for the very first time, played by the late William Hartnell, and also had to introduce 3 companions to the TARDIS. So cut to the chase. Ian and Barbara think Susan's hiding something, and they obviously follow her to her home, find her, go into the garage. Susan calls out to obviously the Doctor, which is her grandfather at this point, and yeah, basically they walk in and they see this TARDIS machine, which is then the TARDIS, and obviously Susan makes the TARDIS makes up the name of the TARDIS with its dimensions, time and relative dimension in space. She makes up the name, so actually Susan came up with the name, as we know. So yeah, this had to introduce Barbara and Ian and Susan and the Doctor all in one story, which is quite a big thing, which is why the first part is so incredibly good. I'm going to get the episodes names up here so I can actually read them out to you, so they're not as bad as what people think. So yeah, this serial had a lot going for it. The first part had a lot going for it. It had to introduce the TARDIS, it had to introduce the Doctor and friends, and it had to introduce the Doctor's granddaughter as well. And it had to introduce it had to introduce the show as well. So An Unearthly Child had to introduce a lot of things at once. It had to introduce tons of things at once, and I think the first part, which is just called An Unearthly Child, does that exceedingly well. Cut to the chase, cliffhanger. The next part is called An Unearthly Child, The Cave of Skulls. Basically, the teachers wake up to seeing that they're on an alien kind of world, or caveman times as it is known. The Doctor does not. Basically, Barbara and Ian are kidnapped victims of the first Doctor, and at this point this would be the second week, and people would start, they wouldn't be fans of the show just yet, but they would start knowing what Doctor Who is. Basically, they'd start to know what this new show was all about, because they already watched an episode like a week before. And The Cave of Skulls is another really good part to this story, because it's when you start getting more of an in-depth introduction to this type of story, to this kind of sci-fi show, if you like. And it was just brilliantly done. I loved the setting, I loved the idea of the caveman, and The Cave of Skulls really is freaky. At this point, Doctor Who was in black and white. It would be a few years before it would be in colour, but I'm watching all of the old classic episodes of these reviews. I loved the setting of the entire... I loved the setting of The Unearthly Child. It was a fantastic, starting on 20th century Earth and going into another point with two very confused teachers. Ian and the Doctor play off really well, I think, because Ian is a bit protective over the girls, so naturally he's going to be protective over Barbara and Susan, because obviously Ian is Susan's teacher, so yeah, he's a bit protective. The Cave of Skulls, I loved the setting. It didn't look like it was filmed, it actually didn't look like they'd actually gone back in time. It was so realistic. Although, can I just point out, the production team at this point only had a bit of money, so it was probably all they could do. But I loved Susan's mentions of what the TARDIS used to be before it hadn't changed into the police box. Obviously, the actual explanation for this is the chameleon circuit, which we don't find out about, but it is mentioned in Modern Doctor Who, which is why I'm putting it here. And I love the fact that she mentions it's changed into a sedan chair. She mentions two things about the TARDIS, which I think is really good in The Cave of Skulls. Also, at this point, you're getting to like the three companions. You're getting to like Susan, Barbara and Ian. You're getting to know them as people, rather than just looking at them as what the hell's this, rather than looking at the show like, at the hell, what's this? So you're getting to that point where you're starting to feel kind of good, and at the time the producer of Doctor Who at the time was Unearthly Newman, so, you know. And yeah, and then obviously you've got part 3, An Unearthly Child, The Forest of Fears. So at this point the Doctor promises to make fire to try and escape, or Ian does. But what I like about The Forest of Fear is it's a really good way of seeing how the Doctor and Ian play off each other. Ian stops the Doctor from killing a caveman, which I think is good, and they start feeling more ideal. And at this point, Doctor Who is starting to be getting good. People are starting to know what the show is because they've watched it for 2 weeks on, and it's just fantastic. I loved the fact that the acoustic setting, from the costumes and everything, for this first Doctor Who story, this first 4-part story, is absolutely fantastic. And then obviously you've got the Firemaker as well, which I think is just fantastic. So my review on this. Now time for my review. So I loved this particular story because it's the first Doctor Who story to come out in 1963. No one knew at this point what Doctor Who was. They didn't even know about it, and now they were, because this was brand new. I absolutely loved this story. It does so much, but I think it does it well. I think what an Unearthly Child does is it introduces the TARDIS, the Doctor and companions all in one go without throwing too much information off you. It splits the information between all 4 parts, which I absolutely love. It doesn't chuck all the information to you at once straight away. It gives you a bit of time, it gives you a bit of breather in between each part that you watch, a bit of time to get used to what this is, and it doesn't chuck too much information to you at once, which is what I loved. I loved the acoustic setting of it. It was a fantastic, the idea of cavemen, brilliant first story, and also brilliant first ever Doctor Who adventure. I mean, come on. I loved how Ian played off the Doctor really well, how Barbara played off Susan and Ian really well. I loved everything about it. I loved the acoustic settings of it. I loved from the entire product's set designs to everything about it. It was absolutely fantastic. This serial was definitely, I say serial because it's in 4 parts. It's not like a 45-minute Doctor Who episode. This was in 24 parts. This was 24 minutes each episode, and I just absolutely love each and every episode. The fact it dishes out little bits of information about this show in every episode and doesn't give it all to you in one go, which I think breaks the show down nicely. Also, what I like about this particular serial is each episode ends on a cliffhanger, which is quite good. So at the end of the serial you get a cliffhanger when they're on another world, which turns out to be Skaro in the next serial, which I'll be reviewing next. The Daleks I'll be reviewing next, which is actually the next serial after the Unearthly Child. And at the end of that you get a cliffhanger of the radiation going up, and that's it. That's all you get. And then you have to wait till next week to watch what's going to happen next. And I just loved how this was I wouldn't ask for a better Doctor Who adventure to introduce in 1963. I think An Unearthly Child is the perfect Doctor Who adventure for the very first time. Obviously, I wasn't born in 1963, but I have watched the classic episodes. So I wouldn't ask for a better Doctor Who first adventure to introduce the show. I think An Unearthly Child does it incredibly well, and I just loved every bit about it. The Doctor's professory kind of coat from the garage on 76 Totters Lane, which then makes a reappearance. The M. Foreman part makes a reappearance in the 50th anniversary, and I don't think, and at this point when it was just starting out, I don't think the BBC knew how much of a success Doctor Who was going to get. It's hard to predict that sometimes, but yeah, this serial has so much good going for it. There's actually nothing negative to say. The only thing that I would say about it that is kind of annoying is it delivers a lot of angry and frustrating moments in this, but I loved it. There's nothing really bad to say or anything negative to say about the entire story, and I would give this serial probably a 10 out of 10 for the very first Doctor Who adventure and story for introducing Doctor Who. I loved it. So yeah, that concludes today's review. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and on Tuesday I'll be reviewing the Dalek serial, which is a 6-part serial. By the way, just to make things clear, I'm reviewing the entire story. I'm not just going to review one part and then review the other part. I'm reviewing it all together as one. Okay? So yeah, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys Tuesday, or maybe sooner depending when the BBC drop a Series 13 release date trailer. I will see you guys soon for another classic Doctor Who episode review. Until then, have a timey-wimey day.